Welcome to At Home with Music. I'm Leon Olguin. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, by the way, if you haven't already. I know that many of my viewers are not subscribed, so this is your big chance. I appreciate your support. We're going to talk about secondary dominant chords. Now, dominant chords are the most vital harmonic force in popular music. When you play a dominant seventh chord, like for example this G7 chord in the key of C, that's a dominant seventh chord, and it creates a strong urge to go to the tonic. This creates a strong sense of movement and direction in music. Now, there are also many colorful alterations of this dominant seventh chord. For example, you could play this dominant seventh with an augmented seventh, and it resolves to C. Or you could play the dominant chord with a flatted fifth, and that resolves. Or you could play the dominant seventh with the addition of a flatted ninth. There's the ninth, but it's flat. It's flatted. Dominant chords are common in popular music, and what makes them common is that they are not only used on the fifth degree of the scale. They're built on other degrees of the scale. Take a look at this example. We're in the key of C major, just a simple chord progression. But in the second bar, we have a C7 chord. And this functions as a dominant chord for the F major chord which follows. And so for a moment, F is treated as if it were the tonic, although we're not really changing keys. So if we analyze this chord progression, we could call that C7 chord the 5 of 4. That is, it's a dominant seventh chord, and it's dominant of the 4 chord. Now, in popular music, we refer to this chord simply as 1/7. But we keep in mind its function as a dominant chord. What does this dominant chord do? It makes you want to go to the next chord, which in this case would be F. So this kind of chord, the seventh chord built on a root other than the 5, which occurs naturally, that's called a secondary dominant. So let me explain even more clearly, if I may. The only dominant seventh chord that occurs naturally in the major scale is the 5/7. All the notes contained in the 5/7 chord, the dominant seventh chord built on the 5, they're all members of the C major scale. Secondary dominants always require the use of accidentals, that is, sharps or flats. So if we go back to our example, you can see that in the second measure, we had to use a B flat, which is part of the C7 chord that leads us naturally to the F major chord. This particular type of a secondary dominant chord, which is built on the first note of the major scale, this is the most common secondary dominant chord, and it provides a smooth but strong preparation for the 4 chord. So you can go straight from C to F, for example. But if you add the secondary dominant, that provides a very smooth and strong pull towards the 4 chord. This is just a brief introduction into the world of secondary dominant chords. You can actually build a secondary dominant chord on every note of the scale in a major key, and they tend to function in specific ways. And so we will explore these specific ways in the next few videos. I'm not sure how many videos it's going to take because I don't want you to get overwhelmed. There's a lot to cover when you're dealing with secondary dominants. You may be wondering, why do I need to learn all this? Why do I need to learn about secondary dominant chords? It will increase your understanding and your enjoyment of whatever you're listening to. It will sharpen your ear. You know, when you listen to a piece of music, obviously you can just have it playing in the background and not pay much attention to it, or you can listen intently and you can analyze it. And you can listen for things like the shape of the melody. We're going to study melody writing later on. You can listen for the chord progression. We've spent a lot of time talking about chord progressions on this channel. We just recently talked about cadences, and so you can listen for what type of cadence am I hearing at the end of every phrase. And now you can begin to listen for secondary dominants. And learning about secondary dominants, incidentally, will help you write your own music. If you're a songwriter, a thorough knowledge of how secondary dominant chords work will enable you to write more interesting chord progressions instead of just relying on the 4 basic chords that you find in every key. And so that's something that we'll talk about even more when we study composition. Listening to music can be fun. Playing music can help increase your brain power. And writing your own music will give you the unbeatable satisfaction of creating something beautiful, something lasting. So, I encourage you to stay tuned. But first, we have more to cover when it comes to secondary dominants. So this is just a brief introduction into this subject. So stay tuned. We're going to get into more of the different secondary dominant chords that you can use and that you can listen for in music. So thanks for watching. I hope this has been helpful. And if you have any questions or comments, you can leave those in the comment section below. I respond to every comment and I answer every question. I look forward to speaking to you in the next one as we continue to explore the big world of secondary dominant chords.